It's the sick show. It's the sick show.
It's the sick
Hold
show.
your mic over. Let's check real quick, make sure we're recording, because I've had issues.
Okay.
I'm not afraid to admit it. And then we're going to put the headphones on, too. 'Cause you got to get the full experience, right? It just draws you.
What do you
in.
want to talk about?
Man, we're going to talk about everything.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the price of tea in China.
There you go.
We're gonna,
Are these headphones?
and then we'll just see how the sound is and
Oh.
see how much different that is.
Yes,
Isn't
very.
that bizarre.
Oh, I can hear myself.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, have you ever listened to yourself in a recording?
Yeah, and I usually don't like it, but this
don't?
doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah.
But
Well,
like on the like, when you used to push, I was like, ugh.
yeah, it's different. This is very different.
Uh-huh.
And a friend of mine that we now just pushed out on Wednesdays, we're doing Wednesdays with Steve Hurd, and he couldn't listen to himself in his first podcast.
Oh, that's
And then we got together again, and I shortened it up to, it was a 3 hour and 45-minute conversation.
Oh my gosh.
So I shortened it up to like 25 minutes. And
Uh-huh.
I'm putting it out every Wednesday as
Yeah.
just a continuing conversation.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to try and do that for the whole year and just see how it turns out.
Oh,
It's
that's
just kind of a little experiment. So.
That's funny.
But I'm just having fun, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
And, my podcast is always based around just ordinary people living incredible lives, doing cool things. And you have one of the more interesting jobs. I think about Jennifer doing endoscopy work
Uh-huh.
and, continually seeing the other end of the spectrum of a human being. But literally working in someone's mouth is one of the most interesting things to me. And I remember one of the first times I came to see you, I hadn't been to the dentist, if I remember right, in like 9 years.
Probably.
And it was because the experience that I had one dentist growing up, and it was Dr. Garrett.
Uh-huh.
And Dr. Garrett had the most interesting breath of any human being.
Oh no.
He was an older fella, and
Before masks.
yes,
Okay.
before mask, and it must have been before mint too.
Oh no.
He never smelled like mint either.
Oh no.
But this is the first time I actually get to have a conversation with you, because usually it's you asking questions and me going, yeah.
Got my hands in your mouth.
Right? It's like a waitress coming and asking you a question right after you took a big bite of
Yeah.
food. You're like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? Everything okay? And you're like, really? You get your
The scary
hand?
part is I understand when you answer
I
me.
know, that's so weird. But that's what you do every day.
Yeah.
So it's not like me where, I don't understand anything people say half the time. I'm like, huh? I can't hear anymore. That's why we wear headphones.
Oh.
So I can amplify it and
There
I
you
can
go.
actually hear. Maybe this is what I need to wear when Jennifer and I are in the car together.
There you go.
Maybe that would really help if she
Actually,
just.
you might be onto something new for
Oh my gosh.
a lot of people.
Maybe I should just get hearing aids.
Or there's that.
So what do you do? How did you become, is it dental hygienist? Is that
My
the
dental
correct term?
hygienist, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My path was very non-traditional.
Okay.
I originally was wanted to be a counselor and go into psychology when I went to college. And I started at IU because I was from Muncie and I didn't,
That's right.
I was going to go someplace
going
else.
away.
Yes. And then I got to Bloomington and found out I didn't like being a big fish in a little pond, or big. I was used to being a big fish in a little pond. Didn't like being a little fish in a big pond.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I came back to Ball State and I loved it, but I had been in psychology down at IU. And then when I came back, my mom kind of encouraged and my father kind of encouraged dentistry or biology. My dad's best friend was a dentist.
Okay.
And so I switched my major to biology. And so I was going to be a dentist. So I have a degree in biology, a bachelor's degree in biology and pre-dental studies.
Okay. Well, I got to do something real quick.
Uh-huh.
It's driving me nuts.
Uh-huh.
I gotta move your mic.
I can like look into it. There you go. Oh, there we go. Oh, hi. I can see. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now I don't feel like I'm looking
There
through
you
it.
go. Oh, through the.
Still there, but just one of the, it's kind of like you got to have a tool in my mouth
Yeah.
when you're doing my teeth. I got to have a microphone in front of you.
There you go. So I went ahead and decided to do dentistry. So I have a degree in biology degree and a pre-dental studies degree, bachelor's degree from Ball State. And I got accepted to IU Dental School and did my first year and did not like it at all,
Hmm.
at all. Um, Not to be TMI, but then my fiance that I dated off and on since we were 13 died in a car accident right after my first year of dental school. So at that point, I had enough change. I didn't want to change something else.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and did my second year and probably wasn't the best idea I ever had. But then after that second year, I'm like, I don't want to do this. But I liked up through I liked the preventative part. I
Okay.
liked up through that. I'm I could have been an okay dentist, but I wouldn't have been a good like my hands get like the artistic part of the create, which really when you're a dentist now, labs do that. But my thinking at the time was
Mm.
this isn't my forte.
Boy, how much different.
Hmm.
Hmm. Technology is just
Yeah, it changed
incredible. What it.
everything and labs. And had I really known,
Hmm.
but I didn't, I thought, this isn't. I'm not as good at this as other people,
Right.
and comparing myself, blah blah blah. Anyway, I did like the preventative part. So at that point, I took a year off, and and I thought, well, I wanted to go to nursing school, but then I realized I had all this money invested in, or my parents did, in dental knowledge.
Yeah.
I'd done 6 of the 8 years to be a dentist,
Wow.
and so I went ahead. So I thought, so then I went back and did dental hygiene school. Well, they've never had anybody do that before. There's been dental hygienists that have become dentists, but they never had a dental student because normally hygiene, if you do it right, it's a year of college prereqs and then 2 years
Okay.
of dental hygiene school. So it used to be, I think now it's a bachelor's degree. There's more class, but it used to be back then an associate degree.
Yeah.
So I was going the other way.
Yep.
So they didn't know what to do with me. So really, I had all the science classes and beyond. So really, I just did the actual hygiene classes,
Okay.
and so then and the clinicals, and I did that. So then I became a hygienist, and then I went back and taught some, and they're like, "We can't get rid of you. We can't get rid of you." So, in a long drawn out story that probably could have been a lot shorter, but that's how I ended up being a hygienist through this weird path of
That's
life that took
crazy.
me there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love I love my patients. That's my favorite part of my job. And my friends say it's a perfect job for me because I get to talk all day and you have to listen to me because I have
That's right.
sharp instruments in
That's
your
it
mouth.
right
So,
there.
you know.
This is, I always think when you're talking to me, I've just got this look of shock in my face. It's like, God, my stories must be really good. I'm going to keep telling them.
Yeah. No, I liked it. No, I love to hear what my patients doing.
No, I'm talking about your stories. I've got the look
Oh
of,
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, my
you
stories.
guys
Yeah,
can't.
you're a captive audience. I know that.
That's right.
You have no choice.
We all look, we have our mouths wide open
uh,
and like,
uh,
and you're like, oh, my stories are so good. They're shocking everyone.
See, there you go. So I just keep telling them and keep talking.
That's it.
And
Maybe I
30
need to be,
years later, we're still telling
man,
stories. Yeah.
it's so good. So you are now almost a trailblazer of sorts because you've gone a totally different direction than everyone else. Um, did that help you when you entered the field, or was it? Because I could see it being intimidating for a dentist too, where they're like,
Mhm.
okay, how long am I going to have her?
Yeah, no, actually, it was very well, it became very fortunate in when I was still in hygiene school because my dental class was a year ahead of me. So
Oh
so all
wow.
my friends in my dental when my DDS, my
Uh huh.
dental student class, they'd already completed their hygiene requirements, which they have to do some, but
Yeah.
not at near,
Yeah.
So they're done. So they were sending me all their patients that needed cleanings and they were coming up
Wow.
to me. So that helped me get my requirements done in dental school. So I had that
Yeah.
benefit. And then I work for Dr. Nowakowski, and he's a very, very bright man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Very smart, very, very
Obviously, he
good.
hired you.
Very good. 2 points for Scott. But I- he is a very bright, so I can understand when he was talking about. I mean, I had a
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
not that other hygienists wouldn't, but I did have extra
Yeah.
background, or when he would talk about something or something would, a little more complex, I'd had more education,
Yeah.
like in sciences and stuff, or that I knew what he was talking about. So that's helped me
Hmm.
in that respect.
That's interesting to think about. I've thought about, um, as I get older, I have 9 years in education, and to qualify for any kind of state retirement through teaching, you got to
Mm.
have 10,
Oh.
and I need 120 days is what somebody told me, 120 days.
Mm.
But I thought, hey, when I get in my 60s, I could go back and just do like maternity leave
I was just
or
gonna say, can you just
just
do temp?
Yeah, I
Thing,
mean,
yeah.
just say, hey, if you need a
Sadly.
teacher for the year, if I'm still licensed at the time,
Uh-huh.
obviously, I'd have to keep my licensure up. Um, but I thought about I could just pick up a year
Yeah.
and to get that requirement in, it wouldn't be much, but it would be something. It might be enough to go on vacation a couple
Right,
times a
right,
year.
right.
So, but I thought about as I was thinking in that realm, I thought, my experience as an administrator would be dramatic. I mean, just the amount of help that would be for me in the classroom for classroom management would be tremendous.
Yeah.
Uh,
You just have an inside scoop, so to speak.
Yeah, you really do, and just knowing the skill set that I learned being at that next level, being the disciplinarian of a school for years, as a dean, then an AP, and then a principal,
Hmm.
um, helped me understand the root causes of those behaviors so much better than just being in the classroom.
Hmm.
And that's not to say that teachers don't understand the root causes,
No, but
but
you've lived them.
yeah, I've lived them, and I have the time to
Uh-huh.
sit and have a conversation with a kid and a parent. And whereas a teacher, you don't have that time.
Right.
You don't have time to sit there and navigate through
Hmm.
all of Bobby's issues to find out why he was,
Doing what
that
he's
way
doing.
today.
Hmm.
And I would think the same thing for you. Now you know what happens if this preventative maintenance, and what that
Hmm.
next step looks like. And for your job, it's like, okay, I see this.
Hmm.
That's going to be that if I don't
And this
make a
in
note of
our profession's evolving very quickly. Lots of
it.
technology, lots of laws changing and being allowed to do more things, like
Oh yeah.
laser technology, being antibiotic placement in for periodontal disease, and I've already had that. I have that background
Mm,
of the science classes, so
hmm.
that when I have to read something or learn something, I have some a
Yeah,
little
the
more
vocab
feedback.
isn't going to
Yeah,
be,
I
yeah.
understand a little better. Although that was a while back, but it's in there. It's in the recesses there somewhere. But
Somewhere.
it's just ever change. Using the scanners now.
Yeah.
It's just oh, we have AI.
Yeah.
We have AI with the X-ray, the radiographs, X-rays. The
Is
AI analyzes it. We still have doctor still has last say. We're in Indiana, so each state's a little different. Of like I'm in Indiana, hygienists cannot diagnose; only
okay.
the dentist can.
Yeah.
But they still count that we can tell them if we see something or point out,
Sure.
So but they make the final
Hmm.
diagnosis in this state.
So oh, you just mentioned AI being,
Hmm.
a new tool that
Hmm.
is coming into play. And boy, you talk about something that's progressing very quickly
Yeah.
across the board. Um, is that where I think you guys did a tooth scan on me the last time.
Yeah, that's called a Nitero scanner. So that's a device that takes, I want to almost describe it like a thousands of cell phone pictures at once and stitches them all together.
Hmm.
So like, let's say you forgot to tell me you were having cold sensitivity or something and you forgot to mention it, and you called me later and said, "Oh, Valerie, I forgot to mention this." Okay, well, I'm not going to see recession on an X-ray. Recession's when your gum comes down
Okay.
the root of your tooth, and then you can be cold. But I can look at that scan and I'm seeing your actual mouth. I'm seeing your actual tooth, not
Hmm.
the x-ray of it. And I can see where your gum level is. And I can
Hmm.
say, oh, you've got some recession over there, or, or I can see where you have a big, there's a big filling here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can actually see it in like 3D view of your mouth instead of a two view
That's a game
radiograph.
changer.
Big time game changer. And even for patient, something as simple as patient, not simple as, but patient education.
Hmm.
If I want to show you something and I take that scan, I can just show it to you right. I don't have to stand you on your head with a mirror and say, "Can you see that? Can you
Right.
see that?" We can just look at the picture that I just took of your mouth, and we can turn it
Really
and look at
interesting.
everything. So yeah, that's been, yeah, a real game changer. And then this AI is still pretty new, so I think it's detecting like differentiation in pixels, and sometimes that's just the angle
Hmm.
of the x-ray or whatever, but it does at least bring to your attention to check it.
Sure.
So I think it'll probably get more and more fine-tuned and eventually, but it's new now, so to us anyway,
Hmm.
it's new, and so we're learning But it's definitely a tool to help you
How
pay
much
attention.
you've been doing this a while?
It'll be 30 years in
Oh,
on
good
Halloween.
grief. On
So that's
Halloween.
on
And what a
Halloween.
great time to
Yeah.
start dental
Yeah.
hygienist
Well, that's
work.
when I guess that's my
Halloween.
30 years at Dr. Nowakowski's office on Halloween. That was my first real job. So out
What
of
a
it.
motivator.
Yeah.
When do you want to start?
Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that an omen? I don't know.
No, it's so you can get all the candy off their
There
teeth,
you go.
all
Oh,
the
there you go.
Snickers out of their
There you go.
gums.
All that good sugar.
I've since the first time we met, I've still not come in with Cheeto and
The Oreo.
Oreos. I
Yes.
know you've been really hopeful for that. I probably won't be able to do it. I brushed my teeth like 6 times before you came today and flossed twice.
Oh, there you go.
And then I have a pick, and I was like going at it that way. Like I knew it was just it's like a little PTSD.
Oh, I have people, they see me out and they're just, I'm like, I come with that. I have no instruments. I'm good. You're good. No, I promise I won't do anything.
What's the strangest thing you've ever had to do? And I don't want you to divulge patient names or
No,
anything
no,
like
no.
that, but can you tell us what the strangest encounter you've had?
There's two, and and this was at a office in a different place
Mm-hmm.
than where I normally work, different city. And I was a friend that was a dentist, and I was subbing for him. And the assistant said to me, "Oh, you've got Mr. Yuckmouth." And I thought they were just messing with me because I was subbing. And I was like, okay, well, this gentleman gets in my chair and Mr. Yuckmouth, but he would not like even take the free toothbrush. Like his mindset was, this is like getting my oil changed. He would come once a month to get his teeth professionally cleaned, but he wouldn't touch them himself in between. And I was like, well, no, actually, this isn't like an oil change. But my friend who was the dentist, he said, Valerie, don't, we've tried ad nauseum, don't even, he's got his mindset and this is what he does. I'm like, that was bizarro to me.
Wow.
And then another time, well, when I was when I was in school, we had to work at a clinic where, you know, your oral health, when you're worried about food and shelter, brushing your
Yeah.
teeth isn't your
Right.
main concern. And that's what this population was. And this person had feelings, but they also hadn't brushed their teeth. So I was learning to use I don't know if I used the Cavitron on you. That's kind of like, I call it like a power washer. It
Okay.
kind of uses ultrasonic and water to clean teeth. And all of a sudden, like these holes were just appearing in this person's tooth. And I'm like, if you'll excuse me, please. I put that thing down and I went back to my instructor. I'm like, there's holes. There's holes. And they were like perfect. I'm like, what? And he said, Valerie, he's had fillings. He'd had like resin fillings. And because he hadn't brushed his teeth,
Uh,
it had decay around it. So when I was using that, and he said, you're not doing anything wrong. This is just the nature of, but I was like, ah,
wow.
I'm like, oh no, I'm blowing holes in this man's.
I'm power washing his teeth
What
out.
kind of instrument have you given me to clean what this means? But so anyway, so that was a definite eye opener with
Wow.
that. But yeah, so it was just, but that was a population that, like I said, in the hierarchy of life,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you're worried about food and shelter,
Yeah.
your oral health maybe not as important as
Isn't
other
it
stuff.
interesting to think about like when you go camping or something,
Uh huh.
or you just out working or
Uh huh.
whatever, and you're not really thinking about cleanliness.
Right.
You're in whatever you're
Right.
doing. Addison and her boyfriend are going to Bonnaroo in a few weeks,
Uh huh.
and they're spending the week down there,
Uh huh.
camping out of their car.
Uh
Basically,
huh.
I gave them a tent, some other stuff, but they're going to be there for a week in pretty fairly primitive,
Yeah.
type camping
Uh huh.
situation. And the whole time I'm just thinking, what are the two things? What are some things I need to at least feel like I'm
Human.
still me. I'm a human. I'm more than just an animal in the woods, and um it's I have to wash my hands and brush my teeth.
Yeah.
Those are like the two big things for me.
And I've had some patients, and I hadn't really thought about it, so but some older gentlemen that were veterans,
Mm,
like like back in World War II, and when you're fighting for your life in a
yeah,
in a
you're not worried
pit,
about that.
you don't have time to worry about brushing your
Yeah.
teeth, and so a lot of them had dental problems later because
Mm,
they were you're fighting for your country, but you're down in a foxhole and trying to
yeah.
survive, and you're not go. Oh, stop! I got to brush my teeth. That's
Yeah.
something I'm fortunate I've never had to think about anything like that,
Yeah, sure.
But when I was
Aren't
talking
we?
to
I
them,
mean, how fortunate we are to
mhm,
we live a pretty charmed life
yeah,
when it
really
comes to
do.
that. I mean, the things that we don't have to worry about on a daily basis,
Mhm,
that we've never had to worry about
right.
on a daily basis. And my family was in poverty when I was a kid, and we lived in a pretty interesting home, and um, but I never worried about running water. Never had to worry about having electricity on, at least
Mhm,
that I know of.
mhm,
You know what I mean?
right,
Um, and to think that my worries are first world problems.
right, very much, yeah.
You know,
You really, see that when you're
yeah.
traveling or it's like, "Whoa, I've
But
got it pretty I've got it pretty easy."
it kind of segues
Uh,
into what else I want to talk to you about.
okay,
But before I get there,
okay.
I want to find out what is one thing you can tell my listeners, hey, you need to do this more than just brush your teeth. Obviously, we need to be brushing our teeth and
Uh,
take care of it. What's one thing where you're like, this is the one, guys? Is there one thing that you're like, God, don't put that in your mouth or
oh.
whatever? You know what I mean?
Well,
And
of course,
we're
you got
not a
the normal
PG show, just so you know. But
smoking, that's a big one.
well, how does smoking affect your mouth
So
health?
it kind of constricts the blood vessels in you. So
Yeah,
the blood flow into your nerves in your tooth. It makes it like people that smoke are like I want to say 7 to 10 times more likely to have periodontal disease.
interesting.
Yeah, and the blood flow to your gums and all that is
Mm.
it's constricted and
'Cause
yeah.
I smoked for 16
Uh,
years, and when I quit,
and then as a hygienist, the stain I don't that don't smoke because I have to clean off
right?
the stain.
Do you remember that one stain I had on my tooth for a long time, and you would scrape at it every time, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Ah, I can't get it. Oh yeah, I forgot. That's there.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's gone. You have finally scraped it out
I
of
was gonna
there.
say, or do we the peroxide or something?
No, it's been gone for
That's
years.
hilarious.
But you haven't had to scrape at it for a while, but I want to throw that out there. So yeah, smoking. What else? What else is something where you're like,
My boss I always get tickled, but he says just floss the ones you want to keep. You know, that's what that's always been his big saying. But truly, your toothbrush does not get in between your teeth, and a
Mhm.
lot of times where people get cavities
Yeah,
is in between.
and I experienced that back
Uh-huh.
here. Is it a molar? Is that what's way
Mhm.
back
Mhm.
here? And you guys had to go in, and it was the only time he's had to numb me,
Mhm.
to give me a filling. And because I'm that weird person that you aren't numbing me, or
Yeah,
like,
I don't
I
get
can't
numbed
do
either.
it.
Mm-mm.
I'd rather, first couple, I think they were fishers. Is that what he calls them?
Oh, pits and fit. Yeah,
Yeah.
just a little.
He
Yeah.
was like, I'm getting a little bit deeper, and I probably haven't
Uh,
gotten anybody. You sure
uh,
you don't want me to numb you? And I said, I'm good. Keep going. I'll let you know when I'm not. And we filled both those that way,
uh,
and he just kind of shook his head the whole time. But then when we got to this one back here, it was in between my two teeth,
mm-hmm.
and there's not much space in
Right.
between my two
Yeah,
teeth
you have
back
to make
there.
a box.
Yeah.
Go from the top
Oh
and
my
make a
gosh.
box. Yeah.
So like it took a while, and it
Mhm.
felt like he was drawing out my whole tooth, and I'm thankful I was numbed. Um, but now I'm very conscious
Uh,
about what's going on back here in between my teeth
yeah.
because I don't want to experience that again.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where it's a little bit I don't know. I don't want to go back to PTSD, but
Uh,
I don't want to experience that again. And so anytime I get something back there, I've got
Lawson,
floss. I've got like floss in my car. I've got floss in.
I'm trying to think what
I'll
there was
pick
this.
up one of the little flossy things off the ground
Oh
if I
no
have
no oh no! Oh, no.
to.
What I'm trying to think what the statistic was like if you floss. I think if you floss your teeth, it adds like 3 years to. I
Oh
don't know.
wow,
It was
interesting.
some kind of. I'll have to look that up.
To
I have to
your
Google
life
it.
or to
Yeah,
your
to your life.
tooth
No,
life?
to your life because
Nuh-uh.
yeah because that's one way through your mouth bacteria gets in your system.
Oh, interesting.
Like when
I've
you have a knee replaced or a hip replaced, it's. I mean, we're not really doing anything that you may not do with flossing or whatever, but what I do is considered dirty surgery because I stir up the
Mhm.
bacteria in your
Yeah.
mouth and that can get in your bloodstream and you can, go
Oh,
to your new,
interesting.
so you have to be careful with that with people.
I've heard that tooth plaque can lead to like heart attack and other things.
They're just tying it to more and more things that, yeah, it's
Wow.
really, but it is an entry way into the rest of your body, so,
We don't think about that. I mean,
mm-mm.
I just think about how much food I can get in a
Yeah.
day. So anyhow, all right.
Yeah.
So um we kind of segued here. We were talking a little bit about just other people's lives and
Uh,
and different places in the
uh,
world, and you have experienced something that with your husband
Yes.
and getting married. And I finally got to meet
Yeah.
Carlos a few weeks
Yeah.
ago. He works at
Oh, yes. He told me. Yeah.
Vera Mays,
Uh,
and Jennifer and I went in there and had a drink before we went to the play.
uh,
Fiddler on the Roof was awesome.
wasn't it awesome? I love.
Gosh,
That's my favorite since I was a kid.
oh,
My
so
mom's side of the
good.
family's Jewish, so I've always loved
I
it.
I've I have watched that in the background as a kid.
Uh-huh.
You know, my mom was always watching old movies, but I never watched it. I had
Uh,
no idea what it was about.
uh-huh.
Oh man, it was so cool.
That was a good
I'm
show.
so glad I got to experience
They
that.
did such a good job. Muncie
Killed
Civic
it.
does a really good job.
Man, they do. It's so
Uh-huh.
impressive.
Uh-huh.
I really enjoy that place. And we sell them some furniture too.
There you go. That helps.
But so met Carlos, and
Uh,
so I met him at the bar. Where'd you meet Carlos?
at the bar.
Interesting.
In
Guys,
the Dominican Republic.
he's at Vera Mays in downtown Muncie, and I'm giving shameless plugs here. Go see him. Just go in and have a drink and
He's
say,
gonna
"Hey,
win
I
the
heard
best.
you. I heard about you on the Schick Show,"
There you go.
and see what he says. But so Val, I don't enough about me. I've met him like for 2 minutes. You've got a lot more knowledge of him
Yeah.
than me. So.
Yeah, that was a whole I was turning 40 and I didn't want to do that in this country. I wanted to leave the country.
Yeah.
And my best friend and her husband, she wanted a beach and a pool, and her husband wanted American beer.
Okay.
So that's what we told the travel agent. We ended up in Punta Cana, in the
That's-
Dominican Republic, and our rooms were by the pool where at the time where Carlos was working. He was managing that one bar, and then he's moved up the chain.
Mhm.
As he's gone, he's a very hard worker and a very entrepreneurial spirit like you. Um, but I met him then on my 40th birthday trip, and that was in 2007. And then for immigration, even back then was very difficult. Just to even come visit was very
Sure.
hard. So I went to there to visit, and of course we were fortunate in this day and age. You can talk on the computer and
Yeah.
on the cell phone. We were not an online. It wasn't an online couple. We met in person
Yeah.
first, and then did that for about 5 years. And then he asked me to marry him in August, and then I went back in November, thinking we were just getting papers checked, and ended up getting married. That's a whole story in and of itself. That's
Wow.
best told over a drink because that was something
Yeah.
out of candid camera. But anyway, and then it took a year of immigration, and that was even back
After you were married.
after we're married. So I went ahead.
So interesting.
Some people will get engaged, and then I'm trying to remember if I think it's a K1 visa. Maybe I'm maybe giving false. One's a K1, one's a K3, but you can be engaged and bring your fiance over, but you have to be married within 90 days. That's where that 90-day fiance show comes
Okay.
from.
Okay.
And they cannot work while they're here. It's not a work visa. So they can't, so they're here, but you have to get married within that 90 days or they have to go home. I chose to get married in the Dominican Republic. So I had to find out what all the papers I needed. I had to
Mhm.
send them to the consulate here in the United States, have them all translated into Spanish, take those papers down. And that's what I thought I was doing, getting my papers approved if they were,
Mhm.
or if I needed something. Well, apparently they were approved, and we were getting married that day at 4. I was told, so, okay, um, which was fine. But anyway, so anyway, I when I was so then we got married, and I came back and filed our marriage papers. And then I had to have them translated back into English. And then I filed them with the Delaware County clerk
Okay.
and had it established in the United States that I was married. Then I changed my name, did all that stuff, and then I started the process to bring my spouse to the United States.
Wow.
And so when he got here on his application, I'd already put in for, he had a social security card, and he got his green card maybe within, I think he got it within 10 days. So he only had 10 days. Thank goodness, because like I said, he's a hard worker, and
Mhm.
he's very prideful of
Yeah.
his work. And he probably would have gone bonkers if he was in 10 days, he got his green card and social security card in the afternoon. He was at work that evening because it was around holiday time.
Yeah.
And he's a bartender. They call him mixologist because he
Yeah.
usually at the higher end restaurant, and he was working parties that night.
Wow.
So he was on it. So yeah. But yeah, that was an interesting. Immigration's an interesting animal.
Yeah.
That was back before. There's been a lot of changes since then, and then COVID.
Sure.
That's been, it's I think what probably took us a year is, well, I actually just got a message from someone on my way over here asking me about that because her daughter has a fiance is doing the K1, the fiance thing, and they've been in the process for 3 years now
Oh
and are
my
still in the process. And so what took us a year, they're still in 3 years, And then when he became he is a citizen. He became a citizen in 2018, and that took us about 6 months, and I think that's taking like 2 years now. I mean, I think it kind of depends where you're from, and
God. Hmm.
it always there's always some luck to the draw and what hoops you have to jump through, but it's a process. I mean, I people really I think people think it's so much easier than it is.
Would
It's
it have
not.
would it have been different had he come here and you guys married?
Um, okay, so if we'd done that, he couldn't have worked for until we were married, and then you would have had to wait. I don't know how long you would have to wait for your green card and your social security number. We I had we'd already done the waiting while he was still in his country working,
Okay.
and so when he
Oh,
got
I
here it was
see.
only 10 days. But if you
Yeah.
do it here, then you're waiting. I'm sure at least months
Yeah, because
to
if you
get
go back, you guys.
or
Um,
you have to get you know they have to process it. I mean, everything takes a while,
mm,
and I'm sure now it takes even more time. And I was fortunate, and I love my patients. I love my patients, but to bring it back around, I had a patient who asked me, she said, "Oh, is Carlos a citizen yet?" I'm like, "Well, no, that he's only been here 3 years." And she goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, you have to be here 5 years. I thought you had to be here 5 years to even try to be a citizen."
mhm.
And she said, "No, Valerie, not if you're married to an American citizen." I said, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah." She's my friend just, and I said, And I thought, well, worst case scenario, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I went home and looked it up.
Right.
By golly, she was right. And I started right then. It's like, oh, we're going to start this process
Hey, we
now.
got work to do. Let's
We're
go.
going to start let's start jumping through some more hoops and more paperwork. But so that took about 6 months, and that was really cool. My family, we all got to go down and see him, take the oath.
Yeah, how
And
cool is that?
it was really, I think there was like 20 people that day from 15 different countries. And I just remember one gentleman from Ghana, and he had he was so excited, and he had the biggest smile, and he was just so, I don't know, it was really a neat experience
Yeah,
to see how excited they were to, and that's not an easy process. You have to
right,
take a test, well, as you and
right.
I've talked about. There's a test, and you
Yeah,
have
I
to
don't know
say,
that I passed that test.
oh, I wouldn't have.
There's no way.
Uh-uh. Now maybe if we studied we would, but
Sure.
just to, like, you think, oh, I'm an American, I
Y-
can pass an American test.
Yeah, but you
No.
say that I taught social studies.
Oh yeah.
I taught it for 5 years,
Uh-huh.
U.S. history in eighth grade. I still don't know that I could pass that.
Yeah.
Like,
I had some things that we were at, we practice and ask questions, and I had a few answers and I was very confident about. And he'd say nope. I'm like, what do you mean nope? He's like, that's not right. I'm like, ah, what? I really thought my answer was correct. Some things as American, like, well, I assume we know, like, who the father of the country is. But
yeah,
Carlos said
yeah.
even some people, Americans that were like testing him sometimes down at work, they didn't know, like, the Star Spangled Banner was
Oh,
the,
interesting.
yeah. So you assume,
Yeah,
who knows?
yeah.
Maybe they thought America the Beautiful was the national anthem. I don't know, but
Who's
it's like,
saying America the Beautiful? Kenny Rogers, huh?
yeah, yeah. He said, Valerie, are you right? Not all the Americans know these answers.
He's,
I told
he's the
you.
father of our country.
Yeah.
Lee Greenwood.
There you go. There you go. I love that song.
I'm proud to be.
Yeah, I love that
I
song.
mean, yeah, that's really interesting. And you think about, you see some of those funnies on TV where they walk up and start asking people questions, all different walks of life.
Uh,
And they're asking them, who's the 16th president of the United States? And they're
uh,
like, Richard Nixon?
One of the
What
funniest ones
happened?
I saw was at 1600 Pennsylvania
Hmm.
Avenue. Nobody knew that, but they could tell you that SpongeBob lived in Bikini Bottom.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
That's so true.
it's just what you're
Man.
focused in on, I guess.
I ran into somebody the other day, and there was a 1600 involved in it, and they were kind of a history type
Uh huh.
person. And I meant to ask them, and I didn't. I meant to ask them, is that a nod to the White House?
Yeah.
I didn't ask them, but when I heard that, that was the first thing I thought of was, are you kind of a history
Uh,
nerd, kind of deal? But
I'll tell you one thing I had a lot of respect for Carlos about, and what I did. English is not his first language.
mhm.
So what we did with his test is I got it a study guide, in Spanish so that he really could understand the questions, what he
Oh,
was
that's
learning,
interesting. Yeah.
what he was
Yeah.
learning. And then once he understood it all in his own language, then we switched over to
Mhm.
studying in English. But I wanted him to understand fully,
Yeah.
because things don't always translate
Yeah. Absolutely.
correctly. So he really knows. He knows a lot. He knows a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that right now. But he studied hard. He'd listen at night. He'd found something on YouTube and he'd listen to questions
Good.
in his sleep. And I mean, he took it very
That's a
seriously.
commitment. I
I mean,
mean,
he took it very seriously, and
yeah.
and I appreciated that he did that.
I've heard that many
Uh-huh.
times. My dad's neighbor, when my dad was alive, he had a neighbor who had immigrated from Mexico,
Uh-huh.
lives here in Hartford City, was raised in his family here, and he was on the path to attain citizenship. And when he did, he couldn't wait to come over and tell my dad. Like as soon as he finished and got home, he
Hmm.
came across the street and told my dad. He said, "Look, I'm an American citizen now. I'm white."
Oh no! Oh no! There you go. That's
And he and my
hilarious.
dad just cracked
Oh,
up.
that's
My dad
funny.
loved telling that story
Uh,
about him going, "I'm white now."
oh no, that's so
He's
funny.
like, "No, you no." My dad's laughing with him,
Uh,
but he was
right.
just playing.
You're just messing.
But it was so funny, like how excited he was wasn't the funny part. The funny
Uh,
part was
uh,
him saying, "I'm white now."
uh,
But it was just impressive how seriously and how much it meant to them. We take it so for
for granted.
granted.
We really do.
It,
I mean, we were fortunate to be born here.
oh
I mean,
man, we
by
hit the
luck of the,
lottery.
but luck of the draw.
We hit the lottery, man.
Absolutely.
Number one, you hit the lottery just being born
Right.
and living through that event. I
Uh-huh,
mean,
uh-huh.
but then to be here and to be a part of this culture and to have the opportunities we have and to live in most communities, have some um, really great amenities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we hit the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
We have running water in our homes.
And yet, we're probably the most depressed people
Oh man,
compared to, you know what I
right?
mean? Because we're always wanting more, or we're
That's it.
comparing, and
That's it.
it's
Yeah.
or we're living in the past or the future, where
Is it
instead of
ever is
enjoying the
it ever
present.
enough?
Yeah,
Is
I've
it
I've
ever
learned a
enough?
lot by being around him and his
Yeah.
family. It really kind of puts your it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I need to be more like this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So how long has he been in the United States?
So he got to the United States in November of he got married November 2012. He got here November of 2013. And then
Okay.
he became a citizen January of 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it ended up being 5 years.
Yeah, by the time
Yeah,
we
by the
did the
time you
whole
went through the
process,
process.
yeah. But I didn't think I could even start the process till at 5 years. And if you're not married to a U.S. citizen, then you do have to be in the country
Okay.
5 years,
Oh,
unless they've
interesting.
changed it. I mean, that's an ever changing animal, but you have to be here. You
Okay.
can be a permanent resident, I believe, after 2 years. Um, and I'm saying this all based on what I knew then. That
Sure.
things may have
Yeah.
changed now. Like I said, it's a never evolving.
Is there any travel issues with because is he dual citizenship? Is that
Well,
a thing or I
I
don't?
think in most countries they consider it dual citizenship. The United States didn't used to. You were U.S., but
Okay.
I don't know if now they do consider. But he I got tickled at him because the first time he used, he has his U.S. passport and he went home
Uh-huh.
and they fingerprinted him. Well, I said, Carlos, you're using a U.S. passport, but it's my country. I said, well, you're using a U.S. passport. You're a U.S.
Uh-huh.
citizen now when you go in there. To them, that's what they saw. But he was
Yeah.
like, fingerprint in my own country. It was hilarious. He didn't find it too funny, but I did.
So you've spent a lot of time in the Dominican,
Yes,
with his
yeah,
family
yeah.
and
They're wonderful. It's a
um
wonderful place.
I've never been.
Oh, you'd love it.
I want to
You
go. And
gotta
I'm a
go.
beach goer. Jennifer and
Yeah.
I are both beach
Oh, you
goers,
gotta go.
and we do enjoy the bar as well. Um,
You gotta go.
is there a destination?
A lot of people go to Punta Cana.
Yep.
That's a nice and lots of all inclusives. Some people that like to be a little more adventuresome and not quite so resort, they may go up to the more northern part, Puerto Plata.
Okay.
There's also they have a big city, Santo Domingo, and
Yep.
it's like a Chicago, New York. I mean, it's a
Really.
big city with all the things,
Yeah.
you know. Um, I think people have an idea of the island being very primitive, and
Hmm.
they're Santo Domingo, like I said, it's a big city with all the stuff. Um, but Punta Cana is probably where most tourists from the United States can go to Punta Cana. There's a more upscale place, Cap Cana,
Okay.
and that's where the really nice hotels and the PGA golf courses, and
Okay.
that's a very nice area, Cap Cana. And then there's some smaller little places that you can go, Santiago, and some other little places if you're more adventuresome and want to do more
Yeah.
the real Dominican, little Romana. Um, there's an island. I'm trying to think of the name of the island. There's an island right off the south coast of Dominican. I've not been there, but Carlos loves it, and
Yeah.
a lot of people that have like taken day trips and stuff over there really like. I wish I could think. I'm drawing a blank, but there's a real cool island right off the south part of um, Dominican that is a fun place to go.
What's his favorite part about being in the States? Besides you, of course.
Besides, that's a good question. Let's see. He gave up sunshine and palm
Right.
trees and ocean
It
to
gets
come to
snow.
Muncie. Come to Muncie. Well, yeah. And then when he came in November, everything's just brown. I
Oh,
think he was wondering what he got himself into at that point. Um, that's a good question. I know he likes the opportunity to work and do his, in advance, and
hmm,
um, he's learned English. I mean, he's done a lot. You know what? I'm gonna have to ask him that
yeah.
question. That's a really good question. I don't know that I actually know the answer to
Well,
that. I'm gonna have to. I'm
look at
gonna have
that.
to get. I'm gonna have
This
to
chick
research. I'm gonna have
show.
to. I'm gonna
Uh,
have to keep a list. I have to Google this and ask Carlos that, and I have
this
to
chick show
research.
marriage counseling
There you
edition.
go. There you go. Mm,
So one of my favorite stories, and I
uh,
want you to tell it because
okay.
I when I came in and got my teeth cleaned, we were going through this whole American citizenship
Right.
piece, and I
Oh.
you had talked about him getting his like practice tests and his
Oh yes.
materials, and as he was reading through it and looking at the different holidays and days we celebrate here and so on and so forth. Well, I teach American history from discovery to Reconstruction after Civil War, and with that we talk about the discovery of the Americas, and there was a specific piece that he got
Yes.
really excited about.
Yeah, and I think I shouldn't generalize, but most Dominicans are pretty chill. Chill. They're very calm about things until they're not. But
Okay.
and Carlos is a very even keeled individual. I mean, it really has to be something for him to get torqued up about. And it was a holiday. He was going to go to the bank, and I said, "Oh no, you can't go to the bank today. They're closed. It's a holiday." He said, "Holiday? What holiday is this?" I said, "Oh, it's Columbus Day." And his head about spun off its axis, and he said, "You don't mean Christopher Cologne?" And I said, "Yeah, I think that's the guy I'm talking about. I'm not sure." And he said, "Why would your country celebrate this man?" He started telling me all this stuff
Oh
about,
man.
that he stole my country's gold, he killed my
Yeah.
people. And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "That's
Yeah.
not the story I heard in
Right.
school." And he said, "Well, they give you the wrong book." That's what he told me. They give you the wrong book. And then I was telling someone, they said, "Well, Valerie, the winners write the history books."
That's right.
And I'd
That's
never
exactly
thought
right.
about that before. I'm like,
That's right.
"Right, first the Pilgrims, that's not right. Now this." I'm like, "What? What did I
Yeah.
learn that was correct?" But anyway, so he told me that, and I said, "Well, when we go to the Dominican, can we go to the museum?"
Yeah.
And so when we did go down there, and he took me to the history museum of his country, and yeah, it was an eye opening
Yeah.
experience. So then when it came time to take his test, one of the words that he might, because part of it is I might have to spell something or use it correct so they know that you understand English. And Columbus Day was when you say, "I'm not using Columbus Day, blah, blah." I said, "Look, we have come this far. If they say Columbus Day, you're going to have to just suck it up and say
Gonna
Columbus Day, and we'll never mention it again after that." Fine, which thank goodness they did not. But yeah, so that we don't acknowledge that at our house. No,
So-
that and Easter have thrown him off.
oh yeah.
Easter, because he doesn't understand. Because in his country, Easter is about it's called Resurrection Day.
Oh, okay.
It's
Gotcha.
about and it's
Yeah.
it's
It's
about
not
Jesus.
about bunnies.
No, and he couldn't understand why there was a rabbit and why it had eggs, because rabbits don't lay
Oh
eggs. He was like,
man.
I said, "I think something pagan got mixed in
Oh,
there. I'm not."
brother.
He said, "But rabbits don't lay eggs." And every year he's like, I don't understand this. I just don't understand." So he's like, never a dull moment at our house, let me tell
There
you.
are times when I say, "Man, we hit the lottery living in
Uh,
America," but then there are times when I'm like, Did we?
Yeah, I mean,
Did we?
we sometimes we really miss
Did we?
the basics,
What
you
are we
know what I
doing?
mean? We miss the
Who's the guy
basics
in the
there.
suit? What's going
Yeah,
on?
yeah, yeah, like,
What's happening?
yeah, he was fine
What
with it,
just
but yeah,
happened?
Columbus, yeah, and so we do not celebrate Columbus Day. Mm-mm. No, no,
So
no.
you tell me that story, and I couldn't wait to go back and share it with my students. And I always taught what I had learned about Christopher Columbus and his brother and uh, the band of folks that came across with them, and them writing people everywhere they go and chopping
Uh,
off fingers, and
yeah,
just the horrors that came along with that. And um, I allowed my students to decide which one they wanted to
uh-huh,
believe. That's up to
uh-huh,
them.
uh-huh,
Here's what happened.
yeah,
Here's the story we tell, so that we can, feel better about it.
I guess.
And that's the hard
But
part.
I
You
had
hear
no,
a lot of people.
I had no
This,
clue. I had
you know,
no clue there was another side
I
to
was
that.
asked in an interview one time what I thought about. Man, what there's a term. I remember replying with, um, "I teach the truth. I teach the truth, and then you get to decide."
Yeah,
Andrew Jackson,
yeah,
was he a hero or a hero or villain?
uh-huh.
And we would go through it, and the kids decided. You know, different times
Well,
for
that's what I was just
sure.
gonna say. When you're looking through the eye, through the perception of someone in this century,
You can't, yeah,
things were different in others. Things were different in other times, and there is a pretty there's good and bad. I
yeah,
mean, that there
absolutely.
is, but
I was very
it's
fortunate to be able to utilize the LeBron Michael Jordan
oh,
scenario as well.
uh-huh,
I mean, and then they never heard of some of the other NBA
uh-huh,
players that I could have referenced, but they knew who those two were.
uh-huh.
And there's a big argument out there
Who's
in
the
the
best?
basketball world, who's the
Uh-huh,
greatest of all time, and a lot of modern day people are LeBrons. And then people who are our age are more Michael Jordan,
uh-huh.
and that's who you grew up with. It was the times, and
He was the best of the time.
right,
You know.
and so always trying to put that into perspective. And you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Do we look at what was happening at the time and how we progressed? I am not the same person that I was
Right.
25 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
30 years ago. 20-year-old me
Mm-hmm.
is so far away from 50-year-old me.
Mm-hmm.
We need to really put that into perspective when we're examining other things too. And I'm sure the way you've grown up around Muncie,
Mm-hmm.
and just look at Muncie
It's changed
from 1980
tremendously.
to 2024. It's really interesting. I did some work at the auditor's office a while
Mhm.
back, and I was looking at a map from I think it was from 1965, 68,
Uh-huh.
somewhere in there. The bypass doesn't exist. Um,
McGalliard.
yeah, McGalliard's
Mm,
like Tillotson doesn't go through.
mm-mm.
It was so different. And I just saw something from like the 1980s, where there's a place called Lee Plumbing out on Bethel,
Mhm.
where it used to be a movie theater. And
Yes,
this
I
picture
remember that.
didn't
Yeah.
even have the movie theater wasn't there. It was
Mhm.
still trees.
Mhm.
Bethel went out, but then like it was so different. We
Mhm.
change. We 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 become better than, hopefully, than what previous versions of us were. And this is the same thing that happens with history. I'm hoping that your husband comes to America and sees all he's aware of all that's happened, but sees a place now where
Mhm.
people are willing to
I think,
love and
yeah,
accept
I think
everyone.
he's had a pretty good experience
Good.
here. People have been very nice to him. Of course, he's
He's hard not to love.
he's
Like,
just easy. He's
20 minutes of being around him, I was like, man, I want to know more about this
yeah,
guy. I wanted him here tonight.
yeah. Oh,
Like,
he would have. Yeah, that would be.
I would love to have him in and experience
Yeah.
just what he's experienced in life,
Uh,
growing up in the Dominican. And
yeah.
we don't get to see that. We don't get an insider's view.
Mm-mm.
We can't experience that now. It's something that's so far it's not even possible for us to grow up somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You went to Delta, I went to Blackford.
Right.
It's
County school.
Yeah, we're very, very interesting, sheltered lives in a way,
Oh,
but
extremely.
also at the same time, we've gotten to experience some things that those who live in the city never will.
No, it's true.
People who grew up in the city don't have parties in the middle of a cornfield with beer in the trunk filled with ice. They don't do that. I don't know if they did that at Delta, but
They did, but my father was a judge at
oh
the
yeah.
time, so I did not partake of
Wow.
that because I did not want
Oh
to appear. I didn't
man.
want to deal with my parents or my father specifically.
I was just over at Jay County jail the other day, and I do some work with Jay County schools, and I thought, you know what, I know some folks at the jail, not because I spent more
Okay,
than one night
okay.
there,
Here's a whole nother topic,
but
folks.
but I've got a friend that works at the sheriff's department, and he and I work together at overhead door, and Patrick is now like, I don't know, lieutenant, sergeant, whatever.
uh,
I don't know the ranks. I'm not real good at
uh,
that stuff, but I stopped in there, and here I am. I'm a salesperson coming to your door for one. So I'm like, hey, I'm Scott. I'm with Educational Furniture. We sell commercial furniture to schools and public businesses and things like that. Just wanted to stop by, introduce myself, drop off cards. If you need anything, I'm your guy.
uh,
And they're like, I could feel it where they were like, okay, come through the door to the window. It's like, God, how do we tell this guy no? We'll just take his card and get him out of here.
uh,
So I get to the window, and the lady kind of looks at me like, put your card in the tray, dude.
uh-huh,
I'm like, I'm not an inmate. I don't know how this works. I don't
uh-huh.
I don't come to jail.
Yeah.
So I said, you just want me to put my cards in here? And she's like, yeah, that'd be fine. I said, I appreciate it. I said, I was gonna tell you that I know someone that works here, but I figured that would get me kicked out. And
Uh,
another lady comes around the corner at that time, and I knew
uh,
that was gonna be my end,
uh-huh.
right? And she goes, oh, who's that? And I said, Patrick Wells. And she goes, oh, how do you know Patrick? And so we started a conversation. I said, we work together at overhead door, blah, blah, blah. She's like, you got any stories?
Oh, there you
I'm like, oh, yeah, I've
go.
got stories.
1 degree of separation.
Right. So I
One
shared a
degree.
story. We're laughing and yucking it up. It was fun to just kind of reminisce for a minute. But, he's on the sheriff's department,
Uh-huh.
and I was there the night he got arrested.
Oh
So,
no.
yeah, doing donuts in the
Oh,
parking lot.
there you go. You used to. That's what things used to be in trouble for.
Donuts,
Wouldn't that be
man.
the nicest if that was the worst thing that happened was
Right?
donuts in the parking
Are you
lot?
kidding me? Yeah, I had to go to court. I was a character witness
Oh
from
my
him.
gosh.
I don't understand how it got to court. That's the part. Jennifer, I was telling Jennifer this the other day, and she goes, how did they get to court? I never thought about that. I never thought about it till Jennifer said to me, you had to go to court for doing donuts
I
in the
know that's
car wash parking lot.
that's crazy.
So yeah, I had to. And I remember the one of the lawyers, prosecuting attorney, whatever, his name was Matson, and he's like, Scott, when Mr. Wells started revving his engine and doing these donuts, um, at what point did you start fearing for your life? And dude, I'm 20 years old. I'm like,
Uh,
never.
uh,
They're like, did you feel as though you had control of the vehicle? I said, at all times. And he's like, at no point did you feel fear for your life. I said, no, sir. That's why my arm was out the window and me going, hell yeah.
oh, no.
And they hit the hammer, and they didn't like that. They didn't like that in the courtroom. I have no more questions for this witness.
Get him off.
But
This
my
is
hand was out the window, hell yeah, the whole time.
that's hilarious.
So yeah, so very different times, man.
Yeah.
And I would imagine if I grew up in the city, my experience would have been much different. We wouldn't have been like where I live.
Huh.
I was out here with Jamie Wittig and Jason Butler and some other guys, and we were picking up like golf balls out here and coming out here to seine for minis and chubs so we can go fishing. I mean, very different.
We used to snowmobile. We're like
Yeah.
Farmington. We used to snowmobile out over. That was
Absolutely.
all just cornfields.
Yeah.
And now it's Farmington.
Yep.
It's all neighborhoods.
It's so interesting. So things continue to grow and change and evolve, and you have too. So this is the third thing.
Uh-oh.
So and it's up to you if you want to talk about it or
Okay.
not. But you look incredible. You've
Oh,
gone
thank
through
you.
a weight loss journey, and
I'm still on it.
and you're still going there.
Yeah.
So what are you doing?
So I've struggled with my weight my whole life,
Yeah.
pretty much. And have had times where I was thinner and times where I was heavier, and have tried, you name it,
Yeah.
been there, done that. And to be honest with you, I could do something for 3 months and lose 50 pounds and then I hit the plateau,
Preach.
and then I gained back 60, and now you're at here. And so, and it, over the years, I mean, I don't even want to think how much weight I've lost and gained back over the years, and everything, and the money, and
Yeah,
da 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 da. But and my job, we were talking about me being a hygienist. It's very physical. I'm bent over, and the new, we just it keeps growing, and I'm ready to slow down, but it's getting more,
sure.
more
Yeah.
fat. And I was to the point where I was just ready to face plant every at the
Mhm.
end of the day. And like if you and I would go to a grocery store, I'd want to push the cart so I could hang on to the
To
cart. I
lean
mean, at
on.
some
Yeah.
point, it just little bits, little bits, little bits, and then the next thing you know, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that really, I know I thought of, like I said, I've tried everything, but and I'd gone to those weight loss surgery
Mm-hmm.
seminars, and it scared me, and I'm not doing this. Um I finally got to, when it got to the point where it's just like something's got to give here. I can tell we're this is not gonna, it's not sustainable. And then we were talking about traveling. I think we were talking about going to Mount Rushmore or something. And oh, that sounds, and I really stopped and thought about it. And I'm like, why are we going to spend money to go there? I can't climb those stairs, or if I
Mm.
can, it's going to take me. I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm going to slow up. Whoever I'm with, I'm going to slow up Carlos or whoever goes with us.
Mm.
This is a waste of time and money. And I thought, okay, Valerie, this is your life. This is that we're here now. What are we going to do about it? So I decided to have, and I'd had 3 or 4 friends had gastric. One had had the bypass, but several had had the
Okay.
gastric sleeve surgery.
Is that what they call a lap band?
No,
Is
there's
that
three
different?
things. There's the band where they put the band around to restrict.
Okay.
There's the sleeve, which is what I had, where they actually removed like 85-90% of my stomach.
Okay.
So you really just have a sleeve of stomach left.
Okay.
But you're everything's still attached like normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just restrictive.
Okay.
And then there's the, I think it's called the Roux-Y, where they actually reroute how everything kind of works. I don't know as much about that because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And those people don't gain weight back as easily, I don't believe, but I think they also maybe have more absorption problems with vitamins and minerals and things. And so
Okay.
each thing has its pro and con. Um and so I did do that, and so I'm down 173 pounds.
Wow.
I
That's
still got a little bit to
incredible.
go, but um I've had a few people that they act, oh, like you did it, you did the easy thing. This has not been this has not been easy.
Come on,
You know,
man.
I'm like you cheated or
Come
something. I'm like,
on.
no, I'm like, but it's been, but I feel like, and here's the thing, you see a lot of people, like even when Al Roker,
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one
Yeah.
he did it the first time, but he gained his weight back.
Yeah.
And I see that, I've watched that with some people, and I think the problem is you think you've done this and it's done.
Yeah.
This is just a tool. It's only a
It's a
tool.
lifestyle.
You've been given a second chance to change. What,
Yeah.
keep doing the same thing over and over again,
It's
expecting
insanity.
different,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I've tried to really remember that this is just a tool. I can move again.
Yeah.
I can change, I can not eat or drink or whatever, like how you did before. Otherwise, you're going to go right back.
Yeah.
It may take you a few years or whatever, but
Yep.
you're gonna go end up right back. And I think that's probably worse for your body than if
Boy.
you didn't do anything.
And you've been on that roller
Oh
coaster.
yeah,
I've been on that roller coaster, and it is a struggle, and it's the mental game
it's a lot of mental
that
things.
is more than the physical
I
piece.
tell you, I knew I did the right thing when I was about, so I had surgery at the end of September in 22, and I think it was about mid October. So I'd lost quite a bit of weight at that point, just
Hmm.
changing lifestyle and stuff. But then and I knew it was coming. I've been told. So I hit a 3 week plateau. I didn't know it was going to be three. I hit a plateau. I'm hardly eating anything. I'm hardly drinking anything. And I'm thinking, I could be eating and drinking and not losing weight, And I knew at that point, had I been on a diet where I could go back, that
Yeah.
I would have been done
Yep.
at 3 weeks. And I'm not, forget it. I'm done. This isn't working. I would have been done, and I would have been right back. Well,
Mm.
with this, I couldn't be done.
Yeah.
I had, I was restricted. I couldn't eat. It made me. So then eventually it did start going again, and
Yeah.
and you do still have plateaus and stuff, but that's when I knew I made the right choice for me.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, people had tried to get me to do this, or I've been to those seminars many times, and I was like, I'm not doing that. I wasn't ready,
Yeah.
and until I was ready, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Isn't that so interesting? It's
Hmm.
I've had drug addiction counselors come in and
Mhm.
talk about the same thing, where it has to be someone who's ready to make that change in their
Mhm.
life. And as someone, I experience a lot of weight ups and downs as well, and especially through my 20s and into now.
Mhm.
And I went through a 65-pound weight loss back in 2018ish,
Mhm.
and um, the amount of effort and work and mental change that had to happen
Mhm.
in order for me to to get back to a healthier life, a healthier weight, so that I could move. I mean,
Mhm.
my knees.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I was going to have like knee surgery at
Right.
one point, and
Me too.
um, that's gone.
Mhm.
That's gone. I
Mhm.
haven't had, dude. I'm running.
Yeah.
This big fella ain't never ran in his life. I'm not a runner. It's like trying to pile drive things every time I take a run, but um, those are things I couldn't have experienced. And you were talking about going to Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Am I going to hold people up?
Right.
I went to Kings Island, and for the first time, I couldn't go on a ride.
Oh, I had that. Yeah.
They got me off the ride, and like, I don't know that I looked horrified, but I felt horrified.
They didn't make me get. I got on a roller coaster, and I could tell. I'm like, if I didn't feel comfortable. I'm like, I'm too. And I got off.
Yeah.
They before I probably got off before they made me get off. But that was a red. That was a big aha moment.
I looked at the guy and I said,
Mhm.
I don't care what it takes. I can take it.
Mhm.
And he goes, I can't.
Mhm.
And I had to get off the ride.
It's humiliating.
It is humiliating. But it was my own doing.
Right.
Nobody, like, there's no one else to blame.
Mm-mm.
I put the food in my mouth.
Yeah. You
I
can come
did
up
that.
with whatever reason, whatever, but
I did it to me.
exactly.
And I said, never again. And it wasn't long after that, I'd bought an old Chevy C10.
Mhm.
And when I got in it to drive it away or to test drive it, the steering wheel was on my belly. Like, every turn
Yep.
was hitting my gut.
Yep.
And that was embarrassing.
Or being afraid to sit, or a chair that's
Oh,
not,
I
those
still
resin
check
chairs,
chairs,
the
man.
resin chair, or getting on a plane and people are
Yeah,
looking at you,
yeah,
like, oh, are you sitting by
yeah.
me?
Well, you're looking great, and
Well,
I
thank
love
you.
your commitment to it, and keep going.
Yeah.
Be happy, enjoy
Yeah.
your life, and enjoy what this has given you. And man, I'm so excited for you, and
Thank you.
I'm glad it's working. And nobody has the right to judge how that happens. Everybody's
Yeah.
journey is their own.
That's true.
It'd be like telling your husband,
Uh,
hey, you gotta celebrate Christopher Cologne.
Close. No way am I doing that. No, no,
Christopher,
no, no. I'm be
Christopher
running.
Cologne. Huh? So when I got up my drink from him that night, I told him who I was, and
Eh,
and he goes, "Oh!" It took him a minute, and then
that
it just kind
clicked.
of registered. He was like, "Christopher Cologne," and I'm like, "Yes, that's it. That's it. That's me. I'm that guy."
Yeah, because I told him, because I remember this very clearly. You came, and right before lunch, and this is when I actually had an hour lunch, and I actually had a lunch. Um, and you said, Valerie, are you going to see Carlos at lunchtime? I said, yeah. He said, you said, will you please let him know that because of him, that the eighth graders in Blackford County are now being told the whole complete story, that I have told this
Yeah,
story. And I went home and told, I did. I went home and told him that, and it made him feel good. It was
yeah.
like, but it's interesting how one, small world,
I've always appreciated other people's life experience, and that's one of the things that's drove me to here to do
uh-huh.
this, and just to have different people tell their story. I
Yeah.
love people. I love. I saw something. I saw something today. It was graffitied somewhere, and it was like talking about the meaning of life is the experience, or the
Uh-huh.
meaning of life. What is the meaning of life?
Uh-huh.
It's the life experience.
Uh-huh.
And
The journey.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
and I love sharing in that with
Yeah.
other people and finding out what they're going through. We all share so many similarities, but we're all so different.
Uh-huh.
But it's those shared experiences that bind us together as human beings, and through all our differences, where we grew up, where, uh, the color of our skin, the color of our hair, the color of our eyes, all these differences um, are in some interesting way are similarities, because of our differences, we're the same.
I've always said world peace if we could just have big potluck dinners and everybody
Oh,
bring their
man.
different and have music and dance,
Gosh.
we'd all be we
Right?
right there it is. But no, we have to focus on the
I know.
I'm like,
I know.
it's really simple. Let's just have big potlucks with dance and music.
It'd be the way to do it.
Yeah,
It'd be the way
simple
to
is
do it.
best.
I like it, man. We can meet right down at Cannon Commons.
There you
It's a
go.
great place.
It is a great place.
Well, thanks for coming by. I
Thank you
sure
so much
appreciate
for
it.
having me. I
Gosh.
appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
Did I miss anything?
Oh,
I
you
know.
hit the high points.
Man, that's what we're looking for,
Yeah.
the peaks, right?
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thanks, Val. Appreciate you. We're out of here,
you.
people.
Thank you so much. That was fun.
Thank you.